Let me ask you something deeply personal. When was the last time you felt truly in control of your life? Not just managing your schedule, not just staying on top of emails or bills. I mean genuinely in control of your thoughts, your reactions, your direction, your inner world. If you had to pause before answering, if something inside you hesitated, then this video was made for you. Because the truth is, most people are not living their lives. They are being lived by them, pulled by notifications, shaped by other people's opinions, drained by habits they didn't consciously choose, haunted by fears they've never examined, and trapped in a version of themselves they never actually agreed to become. And the worst part? They don't even know it's happening. This is not a weakness, this is not a character flaw. It is the natural result of living in a world that profits from your distraction, your insecurity, your reactivity. A world designed to keep you perpetually off balance, perpetually consuming, perpetually seeking approval from sources that do not care about your flourishing. But 2,000 years ago, a group of thinkers saw all of this coming. Not in the details. They didn't know about social media or smartphones, but in the essence. They understood the mechanics of human suffering. They understood what steals a person's life from the inside out. They were the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, Zeno. Men who lived in chaos, war, slavery, political upheaval, and personal loss, and who emerged not broken but sharpened, who discovered that the path to freedom was not through changing the external world, but through transforming the internal one. And they left us a map. Today, we are going to use that map. We're going to look at 15 specific things, habits, mindsets, patterns, and attachments that are quietly stealing your power, your peace, and your potential. Things you need to eliminate, not with grand announcements, not with dramatic declarations, silently, decisively, starting today, stay until the end. The final 3 are the ones most people never address, and they may be the most important of all. Let's begin. Stoicism thing Durka 1. The need for constant approval. Epictetus, born into slavery and freed to become one of the greatest philosophical minds in history, said something that should stop you cold. It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. And there is no judgment more destructive than this one, that your worth depends on what other people think of you. Let's be honest. You've felt it. The anxiety before posting something online, wondering how it will land. The replaying of a conversation, wondering if you said something wrong. The way a single critical comment can ruin a day filled with compliments. The way you've held yourself back from starting something, saying something, becoming something, because you were afraid of being judged. This is the tyranny of external validation, and it is the first and most pervasive thief of your autonomy. Here is what the Stoics understood with startling precision. Other people's opinions exist entirely within their own minds. They are not facts. They are not verdicts. They are one person's reaction, filtered through their own wounds, their own biases, their own good or bad day. You cannot control them. You cannot earn them reliably. And they will contradict each other endlessly. Someone will think you are too quiet. Someone else will think you talk too much. Someone will think you're trying too hard. Someone else will think you're not trying enough. You cannot satisfy them all. You will exhaust yourself trying. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, and one of the most scrutinized people on earth, wrote in his private journal, never intended for publication, these words, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." He noticed it. He named it. He worked against it daily. The elimination is this. Stop outsourcing the verdict on your life to people who don't know your journey. Begin building what the Stoics called an internal locus of evaluation. Ask yourself, am I acting in accordance with my values? Am I doing my best? Am I being honest? If the answer is yes, no external opinion changes the quality of your action. This is not arrogance. It is self-possession. It is the foundation on which every other elimination rests. Do it silently. Don't announce that you no longer care what people think. That itself is performance. Simply stop organizing your choices around other people's hypothetical reactions. one decision at a time. Martyra thing number 2. The habit of complaining. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Complaining feels like strength. It feels like we are naming an injustice, drawing attention to something wrong, demanding that reality be better than it is. But look closer at what complaining actually does. It fixes nothing. It changes nothing external. But internally, it does tremendous damage. Every complaint is a repetition of the story that things should be different than they are. And every repetition of that story deepens your suffering because it keeps you anchored in a gap between reality and expectation, a gap you are not using your energy to close. The Stoics were not passive. They were not people who sat with folded hands while injustice occurred around them. Cato fought against Julius Caesar's consolidation of power until his last breath. Seneca wrote endlessly about corruption and moral failure. The difference was that they engaged with problems. They did not merely narrate their grievances. There is a question the Stoics implicitly asked every time something went wrong. Is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, accept, adapt, and redirect your energy to what you can influence. Complaining lives in the space between action and acceptance. It is what happens when we're not willing to act and not willing to accept. It is the most expensive form of inaction because it costs us our mental peace while producing zero results. Eliminate it silently. When you catch yourself about to voice a complaint, pause. Ask, is this useful? If you're identifying a problem to solve it, continue. If you're simply narrating how unfair things are, stop. Redirect that same energy toward a single small action you can take. Do this consistently and watch how quickly your relationship with difficulty transforms. Problems become puzzles. Setbacks become information. And you stop being someone things happen to and start being someone who happens to things. Dhammatakshyu, thing number 3, the comparison trap. Seneca, writing to his friend Lucilius, offered one of the most important warnings in all of Stoic philosophy. Omnia aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est. Everything is foreign to us, only time is truly ours. But we spend that time, the only thing we truly own, measuring ourselves against other people's highlight reels, against their curated achievements, their apparent ease, their success as we imagine it. We compare our internal experience to their external presentation, which is never an accurate comparison. This is not new. It didn't begin with social media. Seneca was warning against it 2 millennia ago, in a world of philosophers and senators and orators who competed for status and reputation. Human beings have always compared themselves to one another, but never before in history have we had the ability to compare ourselves to thousands of people simultaneously, in real time all day long. The result is a chronic sense of inadequacy that no achievement can fully resolve, because there will always be someone further ahead by whatever metric you are using. Always someone richer, thinner, more successful, more admired, more creative. The comparison game is a game designed so that no one wins. The Stoic response is radical and precise. Your only valid comparison is to your former self. Are you more disciplined than you were last year? More honest? More useful? More grounded? That is the only competition that matters, because it is the only one you can actually win, and the only one whose results are genuinely yours. Eliminate the habit silently. You don't need to delete your social media accounts or make grand proclamations. Simply interrupt the process. When you notice comparison arising, that slight sink in your chest when someone seems to have what you want, name it. This is comparison. This is not useful data. This is noise. Then return to your own race, your own lane, your own metrics, the life you are comparing yours to. You don't have full information. You see the highlight. You don't see the cost. Thing number 4, living in the future or the past. Marcus Aurelius in Meditations, confine yourself to the present. 3 words. 3 of the most powerful words ever written on the subject of human suffering. Because almost all of our suffering occurs not in the present moment, but in our thoughts about what has happened or what might happen, in the replaying of old wounds, in the rehearsing of feared futures, in the long, exhausting commute between regret and anxiety that most of us take every single day without realizing we've bought a ticket. The past is fixed. It cannot be changed by any amount of rumination. The future is uncertain. It cannot be secured by any amount of worry. And yet we spend the vast majority of our mental energy in one of those two places, largely ignoring the only place where life actually occurs and where we have actual agency, now. The Stoics didn't advocate for a shallow, live-in-the-moment philosophy that ignores planning or learning from experience. Marcus Aurelius planned military campaigns. Seneca wrote extensively about the importance of considering death, memento mori, as a tool for appreciating the present. The Stoics thought about the future and learned from the past. They simply didn't live there. The distinction is crucial. Visiting the past to learn from it is wisdom. Living there is prison. Visiting the future to plan for it is prudence. Living there is anxiety. Eliminate the chronic absence from your own present life. Practice returning. When your mind travels, notice the journey and consciously return your attention to what is in front of you. What is real? What is here? What requires your presence now? You cannot reclaim yesterday. You cannot live tomorrow ahead of schedule. But you can be fully alive today, and today is where everything that matters actually happens. Darima thing 5. The illusion of control over others. Epictetus, in his foundational text The Enchiridion, opens with what may be the most important distinction in all of philosophy. Some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in one word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. Among the things not in your control, the choices, behaviors, feelings, and attitudes of every other human being on earth. This sounds obvious, but examine your suffering for the next 24 hours. How much of it comes from trying to change someone who doesn't want to change? From wanting a person to understand you who is not capable of understanding you right now? From being frustrated that a colleague, a partner, a family member, a friend will not behave the way you need them to behave? We spend enormous amounts of energy trying to manage, manipulate, persuade, guilt, and coerce the people around us into being different than they are. And when it doesn't work, and it rarely works, we suffer. We feel powerless. We resent them. The Stoic solution is not indifference. Marcus Aurelius loved his family and wept for his children. Seneca wrote with profound affection for his friends. The Stoics cared deeply about people. They simply understood that the way other people choose to be is their own responsibility, not yours. Your responsibility is how you respond. Your responsibility is what you model. Your responsibility is who you choose to spend your time with and under what conditions. But you cannot force another person's inner life to change to suit your preferences. Eliminate the illusion. Release the attempt to control what you cannot control. You will find that the energy you recover from this release is enormous, and you can redirect it entirely toward the one domain where you have genuine power, yourself. Thus to earn thing 6. The fear of discomfort. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, it is because we do not dare that they are difficult." We have been systematically trained by the modern world to treat discomfort as a problem to be solved, as a signal that something has gone wrong, as an enemy to be avoided at nearly any cost. And this training is quietly devastating us, because discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the price of growth. It is the sensation that accompanies expansion, learning, courage, and meaningful change. You cannot become a better version of yourself without passing through discomfort. There is no other route. The Stoics practiced what Seneca called voluntary hardship, deliberately introducing discomfort into their lives in order to build resilience and to demonstrate to themselves that their well-being was not dependent on ease. He would periodically dress in rough clothes, eat simple food, sleep on a hard surface, not because he enjoyed deprivation, but to prove to himself and to internalize deeply that he could endure it. That comfort was a preference, not a requirement for his peace. "I am not poor," he wrote me, "because I am not distressed by poverty." This practice, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity, was central to Stoic philosophy. Not pessimism, but preparation. And in the preparation, liberation. When you know you can handle discomfort, you stop arranging your entire life to avoid it. You stop making smaller choices to dodge the sensation of difficulty. You stop shrinking. Eliminate the avoidance. Begin small. Deliberately choose one uncomfortable thing each day. A cold shower. A difficult conversation. A workout when you don't feel like it. A creative project you've been postponing. Each time you walk toward discomfort rather than away from it, you are training your nervous system and your identity. You are becoming the person who does hard things, and from that identity, every other aspiration becomes reachable. Thing number 7. Excessive attachment to outcomes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have control over your actions, but not the fruits of your actions." This idea, which appears in the Stoics, in the Bhagavad Gita, in Zen philosophy, and in virtually every wisdom tradition that has lasted thousands of years, points to one of the deepest sources of human suffering, our desperate attachment to results we cannot fully control. You prepare a presentation meticulously, and the decision maker is in a bad mood that day. You do everything right in a relationship, and the other person chooses differently. You build a business with integrity and insight, and the market shifts in an unforeseen direction. You train hard, and you get injured the week before the event. Life is full of situations where we can influence outcomes but cannot determine them, where we can play well but cannot control the game, where we can give our full effort and still not get what we were working for. When we are excessively attached to outcomes, this becomes unbearable. Every setback is a catastrophe. Every failure is an identity crisis. Every deviation from the plan is a disaster that consumes our mental energy far beyond its actual significance. The Stoics proposed a different architecture. They called it preferred indifference. You could prefer success, health, wealth, good relationships. These preferences were natural and reasonable, but you would not make your inner peace contingent on achieving them. You would work fully toward the preferred outcome while remaining genuinely unmoved if it did not materialize. This is not low ambition, this is high execution. When your sense of self is not on the line with every outcome, you can pursue goals with more clarity, more creativity, and more resilience, because failure stops being fatal and starts being informative. Eliminate the excessive attachment, give your full effort, then release the result. The effort is yours. The outcome involves too many variables beyond your control to stake your peace upon it. Thing 8. Toxic relationships and draining associations. Epictetus warned, "Be careful to leave your son's mind better than you found it." And in the same spirit, Seneca wrote perhaps his most direct social counsel. Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The people you spend the most time with are not neutral to your development. They are either contributing to your growth or to your stagnation. They are either nourishing your character or corroding it. This is not romantic moralizing. It is observable, replicable fact. We absorb the habits, attitudes, standards, and energy of those around us. A chronically negative person doesn't just make your conversations unpleasant. They gradually shift your view of the world toward their own. A person who normalizes mediocrity doesn't just lower the average energy in the room. They begin to make mediocrity seem reasonable to you. A person who gossips and criticizes and resents doesn't just fill your ears with noise. They begin to calibrate your own moral compass downward. This does not mean cutting off everyone who struggles. The Stoics were deeply compassionate. Seneca himself had complex, imperfect relationships. What it means is becoming intentional and honest about who you spend your irreplaceable time with, and what that association produces in you over time. Eliminate toxic associations silently. You do not need dramatic scenes or confrontations. Reduce contact gradually. Fill the space with people who challenge you, who model what you aspire to, who speak to you as if you are capable of more than you currently are. The quality of your life will reflect the quality of your closest associations. Choose accordingly. There are some things up benign. The noise of constant stimulation. Seneca wrote, "Retire into yourself as much as possible. Associate with those who will improve you. Welcome those who you can improve. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach." But before you can do any of that, you need silence, you need space. You need the capacity to hear your own thoughts above the incessant noise of modern life. We have created an environment of relentless stimulation, and we are paying a price we have not yet fully calculated. Notifications, autoplay, infinite scroll, background music, podcast in the car, podcast while cooking, podcast while exercising, news while eating, phone while waiting, screen before sleeping, screen upon waking. There is no silence, there is no space, there is no room for the kind of deep, generative thought that actually changes a person from the inside. The Stoics practiced deliberate solitude and silence, not as luxury but as necessity. Marcus Aurelius retreated to write his meditations, not for publication, but for himself. Seneca advocated strongly for periods of withdrawal from social engagement. Epictetus taught his students to sit with their own thoughts, to examine them, to question them. Because you cannot examine a mind that is perpetually occupied. You cannot hear your own values through constant external noise. You cannot make meaningful choices when your attention is being continuously hijacked. The result of chronic stimulation is not rest, it is exhaustion. And it is a particular kind of exhaustion, the kind that makes you feel dull even after sleep. Reactive rather than intentional. Restless rather than peaceful. Eliminate the noise. Not permanently, not dramatically, but deliberately. Build spaces of silence into your day. Even 15 minutes of genuine quiet, no phone, no music, no media, begins to restore the capacity for original thought, for self-awareness, for the kind of reflection that Stoicism demands and that genuine growth requires. You cannot think if you never stop to think. You cannot know yourself if you never sit with yourself. Start there. Doorsen B first. Thing 910. The pursuit of empty pleasures. Seneca asked one of the most uncomfortable questions in all of Stoic literature. How long will you wait before you demand the best for yourself? He wasn't talking about luxury. He was talking about depth, about choosing substance over sensation, meaning over momentary pleasure, genuine experience over its numbing simulation. We live in the age of maximum empty pleasure. Entertainment designed to be maximally engaging and minimally nourishing. Food engineered to be irresistible but not satisfying. Social media creating the sensation of connection while actually deepening loneliness. Substances that promise relief and deliver dependency. Distraction after distraction, consumption after consumption, and at the end of it a life that feels somehow hollow despite being packed with stimulation. The Stoics distinguish between hedon, mere pleasure, sensation without value, and eudaimonia, flourishing, the deep satisfaction that comes from living in accordance with your nature and your values. The first is easy to acquire and quickly depletes. The second is difficult to cultivate and permanently sustaining. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the emperor's luxuries, the banquets, the entertainment, the privileges of power, and consistently described them as distractions from what mattered. Do not indulge in dreams of what you have not, he wrote, but count up the chief of the blessings you do have. The question to ask yourself about any habitual pleasure is, does this serve my flourishing, or does it merely serve my momentary comfort? Does this make me stronger, clearer, more capable, or does it numb me, diminish me, waste the time I have? Eliminate empty pleasures silently, not through rigid asceticism, not through guilt, but through substitution. Replace each hollow habit with something that actually nourishes: real conversation, physical movement, creative effort, meaningful learning, time in nature, genuine rest. You will find that you don't miss the emptiness once you've tasted the alternative. Thing 11. Procrastination. Disguised as preparation. Seneca's most haunting observation on time may be this: we are always getting ready to live, but never living. Procrastination is the great pretender. It does not usually show up as laziness. Most people would recognize and reject that. It shows up as perfectionism, as research, as waiting until the right moment, the right resources, the right circumstances, as just one more preparation before the real beginning. But the real beginning never comes because the conditions are never perfect, and all the while, the one irreplaceable resource, time, continues to deplete. The Stoics were acutely aware of mortality, not as morbidity but as clarity. The practice of memento mori, remembering death, was not intended to depress, but to urgently remind, you have a finite amount of time. Every day spent preparing to live is a day not spent living. Every week spent getting ready is a week gone. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, do not live as though you had 10,000 years ahead of you. While you still can, while you still have time, make yourself good. There is a form of procrastination that wears the mask of wisdom. I need to learn more before I start. I need to save more before I invest. I need to be more ready before I commit. Sometimes this is true, often it is not. Often it is fear in philosopher's clothing, dressed up to sound prudent while actually avoiding the discomfort of beginning. The Stoic practice is to begin, imperfectly, incompletely, insufficiently, but to begin. Because the learning that comes from actually doing is qualitatively different from the learning that comes from preparing to do. Because clarity follows action rather than preceding it. Eliminate the disguise. Look at where you have been getting ready to begin for more than a month. Ask honestly, is this preparation or is this fear? Then take one concrete step today, not the whole project. One step. The ship that does not leave port cannot sail, no matter how well it is provisioned. Epictetus. Thing 12. Victimhood as an identity. This is perhaps the most uncomfortable thing we will address today. So I want to be clear before I continue. Acknowledging that difficult things have happened to you is not victimhood. Being hurt is not weakness. Trauma is real, injustice is real. There are genuine victims of genuine wrongs, and acknowledging that is important. What I am talking about is something different. The adoption of victimhood as a permanent identity. The building of a self-concept around the things that have been done to you, such that those things become who you are, rather than what you experienced. Epictetus understood this better than almost anyone, because he had earned that understanding at the highest cost. He was a slave, he was tortured. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life because his master had broken his leg. By any measure, he had more justification for victimhood than most people who have ever lived. And yet he became one of the freest human beings in recorded history, because he understood that his freedom did not reside in his circumstances. It resided in his response to his circumstances, in what he chose to think, to value, to pursue, to become, regardless of what had been done to him. No man is free who is not master of himself, he wrote. If your story has become primarily a story of what was done to you, of who hurt you, of how the world has failed you, then that story, however true its facts, is holding you prisoner. Not because the facts are wrong, but because a person organized primarily around their wounds cannot simultaneously be organized around their growth. Eliminate the identity quietly, not by denying your history, but by deciding that your history is context for your story, not the plot of your story. The plot is what you do from here. The protagonist is who you choose to become. The past is permanent. The meaning you assign to it and the direction it points you in, those are yours to choose. Thing 13. The obsession with status and appearances. Marcus Aurelius was arguably the most powerful man in the world during his reign, emperor of Rome at the height of its power. He had access to every luxury, every privilege, every marker of status imaginable. And he spent a significant portion of his private journal working against his own attraction to those things. Status is one of the most ancient and deeply ingrained human preoccupations. Evolutionary psychology suggests this is partly biological. In ancestral environments, status often correlated with survival. But in modernity, status has been decoupled from genuine capability or virtue and attached almost entirely to appearance. To what you wear, what you drive, where you vacation, how your life looks from the outside. And the pursuit of the appearance of success often comes at the direct expense of actual success. People buy things they cannot afford to impress people they don't particularly like. They take jobs they hate for titles they can use at parties. They curate images of lives that don't match the reality of their inner experience. The Stoics were not anti-wealth or anti-achievement, but they were unequivocal that the value of anything external was conditional and relative. What they refused to tolerate was the sacrifice of internal peace and moral integrity for external perception. Seneca, a wealthy man himself, wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Eliminate the obsession with how things look. Begin building your life for its actual experience rather than its appearance. Ask yourself regularly and honestly, would I make this same choice if no one would ever know about it? If the answer is no, that is valuable information. Follow the thread. Thing, 14. Self-deception and comfortable lies. The Stoics were ruthlessly honest with themselves. This was not accidental. It was a practice, a daily discipline. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, repeatedly confronted himself with uncomfortable truths about his impulses, his weaknesses, his failures to live up to his own standards. "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit," he wrote. "The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are." Look things in the face and know them for what they are. This is perhaps the most difficult thing in this entire list, because self-deception is comfortable and self-honesty is not. We tell ourselves stories that protect us from the discomfort of seeing our own complicity in our problems. We call avoidance patience. We call fear wisdom. We call people-pleasing kindness. We call settling gratitude. We call stagnation contentment. And these stories feel true because we build them carefully and we rarely examine them. The cost is this: you cannot solve problems you cannot see. You cannot change behaviors you haven't honestly named. You cannot take responsibility for a life you are explaining away. Every comfortable lie you tell yourself about why things are the way they are keeps you one story away from actually changing them. Stoic self-examination, what they called the evening review, involved asking at the end of each day 3 questions. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? What will I improve tomorrow? Simple questions, but asked honestly in a space of genuine self-confrontation rather than self-protection, they become enormously powerful instruments of change. Eliminate the comfortable lies, not through self-flagellation, not through harsh self-judgment. The Stoics were not masochists, but through honest seeing, through the willingness to look at your own behavior with the same clear eyes you would use to observe anyone else. The truth about yourself faced squarely is always more useful than the fiction about yourself, no matter how much more pleasant the fiction is to live in. Thing 15. The neglect of your inner character. We arrive at the 15th, and in some ways most fundamental thing to eliminate. Not a habit, not a fear, not a pattern of thought. The neglect of the only thing you will keep forever. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." In his own soul. Not in a vacation, not in an achievement, not in a relationship or a salary or a title or an address. In the soul, in the interior life, in the character, in the values and virtues deliberately cultivated over time. This is the Stoic endgame. Everything we have discussed today, eliminating external approval, comparison, distraction, procrastination, self-deception, toxic associations, all of it points toward the same destination: a cultivated, intentional interior life, a self you can trust, a character that holds steady under pressure, a set of values so clearly internalized that you know at any moment what the right thing to do is, and can do it. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. They believed these were the only truly good things, not because external goods were bad, but because external goods were unreliable. They could be taken. Wisdom, justice, courage, temperance, no one can take these from you. They are yours as long as you actively tend to them. In a world that is constantly asking you to optimize your external life, your body, your bank account, your social presence, your productivity, your output, the Stoic tradition asks you to do something that feels almost radical. Optimize your character. Be the kind of person who tells the truth even when it costs something. Be the kind of person who acts with integrity even when no one is watching. Be the kind of person who treats others with genuine respect, not because it is expedient, but because it is right. Be the kind of person who keeps commitments, who acknowledges mistakes, who learns, who grows, who faces difficulty without collapsing. Eliminate the neglect of your own soul, not in one dramatic moment, but in one daily choice at a time, because that is the only project that at the end of your life you will have truly been working on all along. Discourfanus closing, the Stoic invitation. We have covered 15 things today, 15 quiet eliminations that, done consistently and sincerely, have the power to transform not just how you live, but who you are. Let me name them one final time, because they are worth hearing again. 1. The need for constant approval. 2. The habit of complaining. 3. The comparison trap. 4. Living in the future or the past. 5. The illusion of control over others. 6. The fear of discomfort. 7. Excessive attachment to outcomes. 8. Toxic relationships and draining associations. 9. The noise of constant stimulation. 10. The pursuit of empty pleasures. 11. Procrastination disguised as preparation. 12. Victimhood as an identity. 13. The obsession with status and appearances. 14. Self-deception and comfortable lies. 15. The neglect of your inner character. None of these eliminations require money. None require special equipment or access or privilege. All of them are available to you right now today, with the only resources you actually own: your attention, your choices, and your willingness to be honest with yourself. This is the Stoic promise. Not that your circumstances will change, though they often do when you change. Not that the world will become easier or kinder or more fair, though your experience of it will shift dramatically. The Stoic promise is simpler and deeper than that. You will become someone you can rely on. You will develop an inner life that cannot be disrupted by external chaos. You will find that the calm, clear, purposeful state you have been seeking, you have been looking for it in the wrong places. It was never out there, it was always in here, in the choices made daily, in the character cultivated deliberately, in the silent, consistent, courageous work of becoming more fully yourself. Marcus Aurelius, in the final pages of his Meditations, wrote words that have reached across 2,000 years to find you here now. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Stop. Right there. You have one life, one window, one shot at the experience of being you, in this body, in this time, with these gifts and these limitations and these circumstances. Do not spend it performing for an audience that is barely paying attention. Do not shrink it to fit someone else's comfort. Do not delay it, waiting for conditions that may never come. Do not explain it away with stories that protect you from your own potential. Live it, fully, deliberately, silently, where silence serves you. Boldly, where boldness is called for. Truthfully, always. That is what the Stoics were pointing at. That is what they died pointing at. The question is not whether you are capable of taking control of your life. The question is whether you will decide to. That decision is yours. It always has been.